Hey, what's going on, guys? June here with Hapa英会話, and joining me today is Lewis from the UK. What's going on, Lewis? How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Cold. It's snowing here in Yamanashi, but it's all good.
Yamanashi, that's amazing. And we got Philip from Australia. What's going on, Philip? How are you today?
Doing very well. Complete opposite though, boiling hot, 35 degrees
Boiling
here
hot.
in Perth.
Because it is summer over there
It
in
is
Australia.
summer, yes. Yes, that's right.
And here in LA, believe it or not, it is raining today and it's kind of cold, but that is, according to LA standards, it's about 60 degrees right now, which is probably not bad. 60 degrees Fahrenheit, probably to all the listeners and even to you guys, that is a term that's really hard to understand. I don't know why the US is like the only place in the world that uses this system. I don't even know what that is in Celsius, but I want to say it's probably around 17 or 18 degrees Celsius, something like that. It's not that cold, but cold enough for me to wear a sweater at least. All right, guys. Well, today we are going to compare the similarities and differences of American, Australian, and British English. I got a couple of different scenarios that we'll be discussing, and we'll take turns responding and answering to these situations. So, Lewis, Philip, are you guys ready to do this?
Let's go for it.
Let's get started, guys. So, we'll start very easy. This is pretty much when you're learning any language, the first thing that you learn is how to greet somebody, all right? So, when you guys greet somebody, and again, when you greet somebody, you are either greeting a friend, somebody that you know, or a stranger. So depending on who you're talking to, it may vary. I want you guys to keep that in mind as you're answering the question. But when you guys greet somebody, what is your go-to greetings? What are maybe two or three things you pretty much say all the time when you greet someone? All right. So Lewis, let's start with you. Lewis from the UK. What do you typically say when you greet somebody?
Well, I think, all the normal stuff like hello, how are you? Um, Nothing too unusual, but there is one thing that maybe if I'm feeling very casual and I'm talking with my friends, I might say I might say sorry. I might say sup fam.
Sup, like a SUP kind of thing.
Sup fam.
Fam, or like FA,
Nice.
like family.
F yes, yes. So even in here in Japan, sometimes if I just kind of I don't know, I'm not paying attention and I get a little bit too relaxed, I might say to someone like, "Oh, sup fam." And they just like have no idea what I'm saying. So yeah, sup as in what is up, like what's happening, what's good, how are you, what is up, sup, and fam, which is kind of, I guess, kind of like London slang for family, like mate, pal, something like that. So yeah, that's if I'm feeling super casual, but otherwise just, regular stuff.
Gotcha. Philip, how about you? Sup? Is that something that you use or you might hear in Australia?
Probably not.
Okay,
At least not for a few years, or many years probably. I've not heard that around, really.
gotcha.
I
All
probably
right,
wouldn't use it myself either. It's a little too, I know, I get the feeling of maybe in Australia, it feels a little 90s.
gotcha.
I'm a 90s kid. What are you gonna do?
Exactly.
Because speaking of the 90s, I might have to agree with Philip here a little bit, but I think when I was in high school, which is back in the 90s, sup was like super commonly used. And I think like when I was greeting my friends back then, I would probably say sup, man. And I think like instead of fam, it was like man or dude or something along those lines. But sup was common. Also, like when you're texting somebody, it was SUP for short, right? So that was definitely a word that was pretty popular back then. And if I do use it, just like you, Lewis, with my close friends that grew up with me. But I'll probably keep it there.
Let's bring it back.
Exactly. I mean, this is the perfect time to do it. I mean, trends always come back at some point, right? How about you, Philip? What are some of your go-to greetings?
I think we go with the classic Australian g'day, you
Hmm.
know, g'day, how's it going? Sometimes we'll throw in different variations of how are you? Like I just said, how's it going? How's life? What have you been up to? Um, that's usually with just about anybody, whether it's friends or strangers. Um, if I'm really close with somebody, we might even start off with an insult,
Hmm.
like we might be like, oh, who let you in here? Or, oh, the animals escaped from the zoo or something, something like that, just to kind of build that relationship at the start. But yeah, most of the time in Australia, we use like shortened versions rather than like good morning. People just say, oh, morning,
Hmm.
afternoon, evening, stuff like that. Very rarely hi, hello. It's usually like hey or g'day most of the time.
Good day. Yeah, you definitely don't hear that in the United States. Good day. And it took me a split second to even like try to understand what good day meant when you first said it, Philip, and then I caught on. But how about in the UK, good day? Or I'm probably like butchering it right now. I'm trying to say it the Australian way, but good day, is that something that's used in the UK?
I feel like if you say it fully, good day, that feels kind of like I don't know, old fashioned, but in a good way. Good day, sir. I feel like that's good, but shortened, I guess it wouldn't be so common, but if somebody heard it, you'd understand it no problem. So people might not say it so much, but to hear it is, yeah, like no problem.
Gotcha. Yeah. Definitely don't hear much here in LA. But for us, or at least for me here living in LA, I think the one that I use the most and the one that you hear pretty frequently is how's it going? I feel like that's a go-to for a lot of people living here in Southern California, whether it's somebody you meet for the first time or somebody that you've known for a while, or even when you go to restaurants and the waiter or the waitress greets you. A lot of the times the way that they'll greet you is by saying, "Hey guys, how's it going today?" And that just seems to be the typical greeting here in the US. Um, and yeah, I think, with my friends, what's going on might be another one that I might use. What up without the S? I don't know if you guys do that or not, but
Oh,
that's,
I've never heard that
oh,
one.
never heard of that one before. Like,
No,
what
that's
up?
a new one.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, no way. Yeah.
Hmm.
That might just be something with my friends. I don't know if that's common here among people living in LA, but at least, with my friends, it's either, "Hey man, how's it going?" or "What up, man?" So you'll never even say the S. And even texting, you'll just completely take out the S and it'll be "what up." So pretty interesting. All right. Well, let's keep it going. So we got the greetings out of the way. Now, if somebody did said good day or how are you or how's it going? How do you guys typically respond to that? So Lewis, let's go back to you again. What is your typical response to a greeting?
Yeah, when somebody asks like how's it going? How are you? Anything like that. I usually, yeah, like to stay as positive as possible. Just say life is good, everything's good, even maybe when things are not so good. Actually, it's kind of for me, it's an opportunity, even if, life is difficult and I'm struggling. I kind of just think to myself, it's like, well, actually, life is good. Even if times are tough, life is good. So yeah, that's my response is I usually like to say life is good, everything's good, I'm doing great. So yeah, try and keep it positive.
I like that, man. Life is good. I feel like I don't hear that much here in the US, but when somebody responds like that, it kind of makes you feel good. Yeah. How about you, Philip? What is your go-to?
Yeah, I mean, usually I'll be like, oh, same old, same old.
Hmm.
Just or nothing special, nothing new, or the usual. Or if I've got something particularly interestingly say, oh, you wouldn't believe it, mate. Something like that. Sort of just, and then they're going to lead with a question, oh, what's going on? And then they'll kind of lead into a conversation about the latest happenings or something that effect. Yeah,
Gotcha.
usually. I think most Australians try not to be too positive. I
Mm.
think we we kind of don't like it when someone's having a good life. We like to keep it mellow, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's funny. But that's kind of like the stereotypical like image that I had of people in the UK though. That's not true?
Um, maybe. I'm not sure. I hear what you're saying. I see what
Yeah,
you mean. But yeah, maybe. Yeah,
maybe.
sometimes people respond a little bit like, whoa, why is he so positive? But we
Yes.
need to raise everybody up.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think when you think about Americans, I think positivity and enthusiasm and all that stuff kind of comes to mind. I think you do hear a lot of people say a lot of positive things and throw out all these positive adjectives to describe how good they're feeling, which, some people do. It's pretty crazy how you might say like, "Hey, how are you today?" And like, "I'm doing super today," or something like along those lines. You'll hear that. I think I'm kind of like you guys. I try to keep it not too good, but not too bad. I'm always the type of person that goes with like, I'm doing all right, or I'm doing pretty good. I've been good, not too bad. Something along those lines where it's not good, not bad. I'm just doing okay. But that's pretty much my go-to. But I think when you're living over here, you get all kinds of responses and. Sometimes, I'll be at the grocery store and I'll just say, "Hey, how you doing today?" And they'll just kind of tell me how terrible of a day that they're having and tell me their whole story and their life story that I wasn't really ready for. That happens here sometimes as well. All right, let's keep the conversation going, guys. So, this is something that I am actually personally curious about. The word mate, bloke. I hope I'm saying that right. I might not even be saying that right. And here, maybe in the United States, it might be like man or dude. But how frequently is the word mate used in Australia and the UK? And I also want to know how the word bloke is actually used. So this one, I'll start with Philip. Can you give me your thoughts, feedbacks on these words here?
I think mate every day.
Every day.
I don't think a day doesn't go by where I don't use it or I don't hear it, at least in public somewhere. Um, I think there's two ways. There's a few ways you can use it. There's two main ways you can use it. Obviously, in a positive way. So you use it as a substitute for like what are as an addition to you. So what are you doing, mate?
Mhm.
Or how's it going, mate? Like
Mhm.
that. But the way that we say it depends on whether or not it's a good reason or a bad reason we're using it.
Mm.
So, for example, if it's with friends, we might be like, "Hey, mate, how's it going?" So, mate, it's kind of a positive intonation. But if it's kind of negative, judgmental, we're like, "Mate, what are you doing, mate? Come on," right? That's how we'd probably use it. But yeah, definitely male, female doesn't matter.
Mm.
Anyway, we use it for sure.
Interesting. So it doesn't matter if you're referring to a guy or a girl, everybody is a mate in Australia.
Everybody's a mate, right?
And it doesn't matter if you're friends or you just met them for the first time, you'll still refer to them as mates.
Yep, yep. So you'll hear it on the bus. People get on the bus and go, "Hey mate, how's it going?" And then when they get off the bus, they go, "Cheers, mate," and then they'll just jump off the bus like that.
That's amazing. I love
So
that. How about you, Lewis?
Well, this is actually really interesting because so I'm from the south of England, just outside London. And before I came to Japan, I moved further up north to Manchester, which is middle of Britain, but further up north. Now, I didn't think about this at all. I didn't think anything of this, but apparently I say mate a lot. And I feel like that's kind of normal for where I grew up. But when I moved up to Manchester, people would say to me, they'd say, "Oh, where are you from in Australia?" They don't ask me are you Australian? No, they say, where are you from in Australia?
Oh.
Because I would just be like, oh, thanks, mate. Or like, oh, you're right, mate. So I would say mate, and I don't think I have an Australian accent, but I would say that quite commonly. And I guess in the south of England, maybe it's a bit more common, but up in the north, not at all. So people mistook me for being Australian.
Mm. Wow. That's interesting. And the way
Mm.
you use it, is it pretty identical to the way Philip uses it in Australia? Pretty much anybody, any gender, sex, whether you meet them for the first time or they've been your close buddies, you'll refer to everybody and anybody as mate.
Yeah, absolutely anybody. I think definitely in Australia, I think they definitely use it more. Um, but yes, I would use it for
Hmm.
anyone. Yeah. And you also mentioned about bloke as well. Yeah, bloke, I feel like bloke has such a there's a real like nuance to it. It has a kind of weight. Um, like a bloke is like a real kind of like a man, like a
Okay.
guy, like I don't know, just like if you just picture a kind of a man drinking beer, working on a construction site, it's a bloke. You know, it's a guy, a bloke. Like it just it's so difficult to like it's so difficult to define, but there's a real the nuance to it. It has a lot of weight.
So you wouldn't use bloke towards a female, is what you're saying?
No. Bloke, mate, yeah, mate is friend, pal, and but bloke is definitely a man, a
Yeah.
bloke.
And is
Mm.
that like a word that you use more with like friends, like informally, or is it kind of depending on where you're from in England? Is it like your background? Like how is that word typically used?
Well, I feel like before, like mate or man, you can just put on the end of a sentence like "you're right, mate," or "what's up, man." Like it's you just as I said, we put it on the end of a sentence. But bloke is more like used as a noun, like oh, some bloke came in earlier, and oh, I was talking to this bloke earlier, and he said blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So I'd actually use it to identify someone,
Gotcha.
not just on the end of a sentence.
Makes
Mm.
sense. How about you, Philip? What's it like over there?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. We use bloke for like referring to a third person.
Hmm.
Um, whether it's formal, informal, whether it's someone you know or you don't know. Like let's say if we're talking about, I know Hugh Jackman, would be like, oh yeah, he's a good bloke.
Hmm.
Or if
Hmm.
we're talking about the Prime Minister, oh yeah, he's been a pretty good bloke lately. So pretty much a substitute for guy, I
Hmm.
think.
Mm.
But much like Lewis said, yeah, mostly for kind of those manly men, kind of as he said, construction worker, beer drinking, that kind of image at the first, but then we use it in other ways as well, mostly to refer to a third person.
Gotcha. So a little like rough around the edges and maybe got like the beard going and yeah, like the really rough looking manly man kind of person is the person you imagine, huh? Yeah. So with bloke, you wouldn't say like, hey bloke. It's more like used as like I spoke or there was a bloke at the grocery store or something like that, referring to like a guy.
Yeah, yeah. And usually really for like storytelling. So
Mm,
be like, oh, I saw this bloke yesterday.
mm.
And
Oh,
then you'd start
gotcha.
talking about it like that. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so in, the United States, I think a lot of it depends on where you live and where you grew up. So I think the most common word is man, which is probably the closest to the word mate. But the only thing with man is that it really has more of a speaking to another man in terms of like male. So you wouldn't really say, hey man, to like a female. You totally could. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think like growing up, I would say like, hey man, to a guy, but I think I would probably watch what I say. I wouldn't like go up to a female friend and be like, hey man, how are you? Kind of thing. I'll just completely take that out of the sentence. And man is used, it seems like in the exact same way as mate that you guys were talking about. Dude, I'm sure you guys have heard of that one before. typical like surfer, snowboarder, skater type of language. I went to college in UC Santa Barbara, which is a school located right along the beach. And it was pretty crazy because I went from never hearing dude in my high school to all of a sudden about 90% of my friends were like, hey, dude, what's going on? Just like the typical movie scenes that you see. So the word man got replaced with dude. And within a year, I started using the word dude in like every other sentence that I was saying. So dude is also another word that is used instead of man. Maybe one last one, bro. I don't know if you guys use that one a lot, but we hear that word a lot. And I find myself using that quite frequently with my close friends. Not really with people that I don't know, but if I haven't seen my friends in a while, I'm like, hey, bro, what's going on? And even with strangers, it's a word that you can casually use. But again, it's really directed towards males and not females. Bro, Lewis, Philip, you guys use that word at all?
How about you, Philip?
No, no,
No.
it's got that American vibe on
It's
it.
got that American vibe to it. Yeah.
It
I,
Yeah.
does.
I feel like I actually say brother a
Mm,
lot fully. Bro, yeah, maybe sometimes in the past, maybe, but brother, I definitely use a lot. When I want to, I don't know, show some endearment towards someone. Um, all men are brothers. We're all part of the same human family. So yeah, to say brother to someone at the end of a sentence, like, oh, thanks, brother. Like, I
mm.
think that shows that has a real weight of respect to it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think bro is kind of the same way. It's kind of like a part of your family. So you might use it with friends like, thanks, bro. Or if you need any help, bro, I'm always here for you. But the funny thing is kind of like what Philip mentioned with mate. If someone like bumped into you and you're maybe irritated that day, you might say, bro, watch out. And you might use it like that to show that you're not very happy with that person. So yeah, pretty interesting. Very cool. All right, well, let's keep it moving, guys. Small talk questions. So I know you guys teach a lot of English to a lot of students, and small talk questions probably come up a lot. So let's talk about it. I want to know what some of the common small talk questions that you guys use personally. So I know you guys don't like represent an entire country, but for you, if you met somebody for the first time or you haven't seen your friends in a while and you have to spark a conversation with them, what are some of your go-to small talk questions? Lewis, how about you?
Well, so I don't know if this is an internationally recognized thing, but England is quite famous for talking about the weather.
Hmm.
We have all 4 seasons, changeable weather. But I read an article online once that somebody actually did research about this, and yeah, of all the countries in the world, British people really do actually talk about the weather a lot. So that's just an easy kind of go-to thing. Something I read years ago is a couple of ideas especially when talking to people you've just met and you want to start a conversation. There's a couple of ideas that I just thought were really interesting. One, it described it like human Twitter,
Hmm.
so that you just kind of make a comment about something. Like if you're waiting for a bus and it's just like the bus is really late, like okay, you might tweet like oh, this bus is never normally late. I'm going to miss my appointment.
Mhm.
So you would just say that to the person next to you. Oh, this bus is never normally late. I'm going to miss my appointment. And just making that kind of comment, that statement is enough to spark a conversation. So that was one, human Twitter. The other one was human Google, which is like asking a question, like, when is this bus going to arrive? So again, just to the person next to you, when's this bus going to arrive? So yeah, human Twitter, human Google, just that little comment, that little question is enough to spark a conversation. And I think most people, when you give them that little opportunity to start speaking, people are happy to join in a conversation.
Interesting. Human Twitter and human Google. I don't think I've ever heard of those expressions before, but I mean, it is very easy to understand what you're trying to say here. How about you, Philip?
Pretty much seconding everything that Lewis just said. Weather as well in Australia is pretty popular, or even just asking other, even if it's from, say, an online conversation, just asking, oh, how's the weather where you are? Having that exchange, especially if it's like been extreme lately, with a cyclone coming through, or it's been like a heat wave, or complaining about it or talking about it, usually sparks a conversation from there. And much in the same way, starting off with a simple conversation with a question, something like, oh, did you see blah, blah, blah lately? Or have you heard about like that? Or what do you think about that? Something that's been in the news lately. And as well, if you're waiting for the bus, kind of like, geez, this bus has taken a while. And the other person will be like, oh, yeah. And then somehow the conversation sort of gets rolling out of there, right? Someone will ask a question and then, yeah, you go from there. The latest thing I would say is probably holidays, especially around this time of the year. There's a lot of big holidays being celebrated. So, obviously we've just had Christmas and New Year, but we've also got Chinese New Year coming up, which is kind of visible in Australia because we've got a large number of Chinese students and Chinese migrants, and also from Taiwan and other parts that also celebrate the Lunar New Year as well. So that might be part of the conversation. And coming up in April, May is the Muslim New Year. So that will start getting celebrated and people will just have, if you kind of recognize that person's where they're from, you might have a conversation about that as well. Just go, oh, I guess it's Chinese New Year. And then someone will start talking about it like that.
So kind of like bringing up like current events or like the holidays, for example, might be a good way. So it's not like always a question is what you guys are saying. Sometimes it's just commenting on your surroundings and then having that feedback from the person around you that sparks a conversation that leads it to a conversation that could go anywhere, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I can just add to that, I think that it's like you don't want to direct a question to a stranger because then it kind of feels confrontational or sort of interrogative. So it's always just to sort of make an open statement that's an indirect question to the person that's there. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I feel like you do get that here in the United States. But the one that you do get a lot, whether it's a stranger or not a close friend, but more like stranger or somebody that you just kind of met, is the icebreaker is the compliment. I feel like that is something you see a lot and hear a lot here. I see it more with female to female kind of thing. Like if I'm like walking around with my wife at the shopping mall, nobody would ever stop me and be like, hey, dude, that's a nice sweater or something like that. Nice shades, man. Nobody would ever really stop me and say that. But when I'm walking with my wife, it definitely wouldn't be surprising to just have a random person come up to my wife like, those are some beautiful shoes you got on. Where did you get them? And suddenly there's like a conversation going on with people that they just met on the spot, So complimenting is something big. Even if I'm like at events, I feel like that's kind of like my go-to. Go ahead.
It's interesting that you say that. You just reminded me. I was out with my friends once, and we were at a bar, and this guy came in, and he had this kind of like leather jacket. It looked kind of like, I don't know, like a motorbike racing jacket or something like that. I don't know, but it was really, really cool jacket. And he had these shades on. And just immediately you look at this guy, you're like, wow, that is one cool guy. That is a cool dude. But a little bit later on, I said to that guy, I was at the bar and I said to him, I was like, yo, bro, that is a nice jacket. And like I said, look at this guy, okay, he's a cool guy. What do you think his attitude will be like? Oh, yeah, man, like, I don't know. You just think that's a cool guy. But I said to him, I was like, oh, yeah, man, that's a nice jacket. And he said to me, he goes, Oh, thanks, man. I wasn't sure about wearing it out today, and I was a little bit unsure. And he was like really like modest. And I was like, oh man, that's you look sick. Wow. So that it was actually really interesting. He really appreciated the compliment
Mhm.
and his attitude was totally different. So yeah, sometimes, just given that little compliment that you think might just be like, oh, well, it's obvious. But
Mhm.
given that compliment, people really appreciate that sometimes.
That's true because, sometimes you're wearing it and you're not really sure if it's just you that think it's kind of cool and everybody else thinks it's like weird or just kind of out there. But when you actually get that compliment, it makes you feel good, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up with this one. And this one I am really curious about because I never use it. And but I hear people use it outside of the US all the time. And I just want to know how common it is and how frequently you use it and how you use it. Reckon. So I reckon fill in the blank. Philip, do you use I reckon in your everyday conversation?
Definitely. I might have already used it so far in our conversation. It's a substitute for I think, pretty
Mhm.
much. And a lot of times giving suggestions or advice, right? So, let's say, for example, you're talking about where you're going to eat tonight or what you're going to do today. Like, I reckon we should do this,
Mm.
or I reckon that's not a good idea. And you hear it no matter where you are, office place, public, friends, family, or strangers. Yeah, all the time. Even when we're like using hypotheticals. Let's say, for example, there's a traffic jam. You're like, oh, why do you think that, what do you reckon's the problem? It'll be, oh, I don't know. Probably, I reckon there's a crash up front, or oh, I reckon there was a kangaroo, something like that. Usually will all the time. Yeah, for suggestions, advice, and using hypotheticals or posing hypotheticals, I think.
How do you separate that from think then? Like, I think, I reckon. Is it just how you're feeling at the time? Is there like a
Yeah.
nuance to that?
I feel like probably think is a little more of a formal thought. Maybe
Formal
reckon
thought.
is something on
Okay.
a surface level, like something just popped into your head, and I reckon we should do this. It's not really a deep kind of, oh, I've been pondering, I've been wondering, I've been considering. I think is probably a next layer where you're emphasizing you've actually spent time thinking about it, whereas reckon is just sort of an idea popped into your head and you're kind of going with it.
Interesting. Lewis, how about you?
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's exactly what I was thinking about was the difference in nuance between think and reckon. And I guess I think. Yeah, I like the way you explained it. Like, I think we should go here. Like, it sounds like a bit more deliberated or like a bit more like you've really thought about it. But
Hmm.
I reckon, yeah, maybe it's just a little bit more, I don't know, yeah, a bit more not casual, but like immediate and um I don't know, a bit more in a way, a bit more like confident. Like
Hmm.
I reckon this. Um so yeah, it's very subtle, but I think most sentences where you say, I think it will rain tomorrow, you can just say, I reckon it will rain tomorrow.
Hmm.
You can just swap them quite interchangeably, I think. Yeah, so yeah, very, very similar. Mm.
Interesting. I've never used that. And I've
Oh,
always thought
really?
reckon sounded a lot more formal than think. But what you guys are saying is that think versus reckon. Reckon is more like something that just kind of pops into your mind, like on the spot, and you say it, versus think has more of like predetermined, like you kind of thought about it before, even a little bit, and then you're expressing your thoughts or sharing your thoughts with them. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I'd even say like if someone said to you, "What do you reckon?"
yeah,
and then
yeah, I was gonna ask that.
you gave your opinion,
Uh-huh.
I don't think that they would take it as like a why would you say that kind of thing?
Uh-huh.
Because it's
Mm,
like I said, it's that surface level. Like if someone said, "What do you reckon? Where should we go?" "Oh, I
Uh-huh.
reckon we should try this. It's kind of a hesitant sort of
mm,
suggestion. Yeah.
So you can
yeah.
use it in that context. You can say, "What do you reckon?" Wow.
Yeah. Mm, mm. Yeah, that's really, really tough to. It's one of those things you just don't really think about. But yeah, reckon just comes very, very quickly, very easily. Oh, I reckon over there. So it's yeah. If you say I think, I don't know. Like it sounds like you're a little bit more committed to
Yeah.
like I think this.
Huh.
But yeah, oh, I reckon blah blah blah. Yeah, bit smoother.
So you just said it now, like when you just said it's not really something you think about, suggesting that
Yes,
you can't substitute. It's not something you really reckon about because it doesn't really
exactly.
sound so. Yeah.
You wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't
No,
say it because it's not because reckon doesn't work for a deep thought. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly. Yeah, like oh, I need to think about this
I need
more carefully.
that.
Yeah. Hmm. So
That
yeah,
is
you
super
throw it
interesting.
in very casually, but not for like a I reckon
Uh,
blah blah blah. Yeah, I reckon we should go there.
yeah.
Eat easy.
So if someone asks you a question and you say something like, let me think about it and I'll get back to you, you wouldn't say, let me reckon it and I'll get back to you. That wouldn't work.
No, but it feels so different. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. How about do
Yeah,
you think? Can you say, do you reckon? Is that okay? If it's like on the spot, I guess. Do you reckon we go out tonight? Something like that. Would that work?
Yeah, I think if we're just going for like the person's instinct or
Instinct.
instant
That's a
reaction,
good word.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And especially when you instead of, do you, but even to shorten that, do you reckon?
Uh-huh.
That kind of easy, casual kind of expression. Do you reckon this? Hmm.
Can you use it in past tense as like thought, I reckoned?
Did you reckon? No, I don't think
Sounds
so.
a bit weird. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I thought our
actually,
meeting was at 3:30 today. I reckoned our meeting was at 3:30 today. I thought,
no,
is that weird?
maybe
I
no,
think the fact that
no.
you have to think about it that much is probably a sign that it's not natural then, right?
Well, actually, so the actual word reckon actually has some different meanings. Like, a force to be reckoned with.
Ah, yeah.
So if you use it past tense, that's what it sounds like.
It's a good one.
I think, which is a different definition. Mhm.
Wow. I love that conversation, man. I felt like I learned a lot about the word reckon in the last 10 minutes that I had no idea about. But to everybody listening to our conversation today, I hope you guys were able to learn a little bit about the difference in American, British, and Australian English. I think, or I reckon that, the point of this video is to kind of let you know that there is no one perfect way of expressing yourself. It really depends on who you're talking to. And English really varies depending on which country, the type of person that you're talking to. And it's good to learn the variations. So, have an open mind, learn a lot of different variations, and find the expression that is right for you. Lewis, Philip, thank you guys very much. That was a lot of fun today.
Yeah, that was really good. Like a lot of these questions are really interesting because, like, as a native speaker, you never really you never think about it, until somebody asks a question like this, and then you're like, oh, what's the difference between these things and the nuance? And it is interesting. I enjoy that. Yeah.
For sure. And I know I'm going to be very self-conscious of any time I use mate or reckon today. I'm going to be analyzing it and going, wait a minute. Yeah, thinking about it. But it's great.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. And to everybody listening and watching, we'll see you again. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Take care.